Have you noticed something uncomfortable lately? Your income is higher than it used to be. On paper, you're doing better than ever. And yet, money still feels tight. Not I'm broke tight, more like a constant background pressure, a sense that one unexpected expense could knock things off balance. What's strange is that this feeling doesn't disappear as income rises. For many people, it actually gets worse. Let's talk about why. Imagine a fairly typical situation in the US or Europe. You're in your late 20s or early 30s. You have a stable job, you're earning around $70,000 or euros a year before tax. After income tax, social contributions, healthcare, and insurance, that becomes roughly $4,000 a month in take-home pay. Nothing extravagant, nothing disastrous, just normal. Now watch what happens to that money. Rent or a mortgage quietly takes $1,500. A car payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, another $600. Student loans or lingering personal debt pull $400 more. Utilities, phone, internet, $300. Groceries, coffee, subscriptions, the small comforts that make life tolerable, around $800. Without doing anything irresponsible, you're already at $3,600. That leaves $400. Not for investing, not for building wealth, but for emergencies, birthdays, travel, medical costs, or life simply happening. So even though you earn more than ever, your margin for error is thin. Here's the part most people misunderstand. The problem isn't spending too much, and it's not that salaries are useless. The real issue is how higher income quietly transforms into permanent commitments. Every raise feels like progress. But instead of increasing freedom, it often increases fixed costs. A slightly nicer apartment because you can afford it now. A newer car because the old one feels outdated. More convenience because life feels stressful and time feels scarce. Each decision feels reasonable on its own, but once a cost becomes fixed, it stops being a choice. It becomes an obligation. And obligations don't care if you're tired, sick, or laid off. This is how financial pressure becomes chronic instead of temporary. Let's slow down and look at the math calmly. That $600 car payment doesn't feel dramatic, but over 5 years, with interest, insurance, and depreciation, that car costs closer to $45,000 or $50,000. That's not a moral judgment, it's just arithmetic. If the same money were invested modestly over time, it wouldn't feel exciting. No thrill, no headlines. But quietly, it could turn into real financial resilience. The issue is that the cost is visible now, and the opportunity cost is invisible for years, so the trade never feels urgent. There's also a psychological layer here. Middle-class decisions aren't guided by long-term outcomes. They're guided by what feels normal. People don't ask, will this make my life easier in 10 years? They ask, is this reasonable for someone like me? And someone like me is defined by coworkers, friends, neighbors, and social media, not by financial security. Normal becomes the benchmark, not freedom, not flexibility, just normal. Ignore this long enough, and the future arrives quietly. 20 years passed, income increased, lifestyle kept pace. Savings stayed fragile, not because of bad habits, but because nothing ever created leverage. At that point, stress doesn't come from big disasters. It comes from permanence. Working feels mandatory, choices feel limited, and every decision is constrained by past commitments. Financially intelligent people don't look different from the outside. They don't feel richer. They feel less exposed. They think less about what they can afford today and more about what they're locking themselves into tomorrow. They treat flexibility as valuable, even if it looks boring. That's not discipline, it's perspective. So if money still feels tight despite earning more, it doesn't mean you failed. It usually means your income grew and your obligations quietly grew with it. Becoming aware of that pattern is often the first moment things start to change. If this way of thinking felt useful, you can subscribe if you'd like.